Have you ever looked around your life after turning 70 and wondered, where did everybody go? Maybe the phone doesn't ring like it used to. Maybe invitations to family events feel more like an afterthought. Maybe the friends who used to be part of your daily life just aren't there anymore. And you know what? That can feel incredibly lonely at first, but here's a thought most people don't talk about. What if solitude isn't a curse, but a gift? Now, I know that might sound surprising. We grow up hearing how important it is to surround ourselves with friends, to stay social, to keep those connections going as we age. And yes, for many people, those relationships do bring comfort. But here's what we rarely hear. You can still live a happy, fulfilling, and peaceful life, even if your social circle has grown smaller. In fact, sometimes that shrinking circle is exactly what your spirit needs to breathe again. In this video, we're going to talk honestly, heart to heart, about why solitude after 70 isn't something to fear. It's something to embrace. You don't need a crowd to validate your worth. You don't need constant chatter to feel alive. And you absolutely don't need to feel ashamed if you find yourself enjoying your own company more than anyone else's. We'll walk through 5 powerful reasons why letting go of the pressure to maintain friendships can open the door to something even better: peace, self-respect, freedom, and clarity. Let's start with something that's difficult but true. Not all friendships age well. The friends we had in our 40s or 50s might have brought us laughter, shared experiences, and companionship, but as we age, our needs shift. Our values shift, our energy shifts. You might have noticed that conversations feel different now. Maybe the topics feel shallow or the connection feels forced. And it's okay to feel that way. It's not that you've become bitter or distant, it's that you've grown. And part of growing is realizing that not every relationship is meant to last forever. Sometimes people grow in different directions. And holding onto a friendship that no longer feeds your soul can be more draining than simply walking away. After 70, your time and energy are your most valuable assets. You get to choose how to spend them and who gets access to them. That's not selfish, that's wisdom. I once spoke to a woman named Linda. She was 74, sharp as a tack and full of insight. She said to me, "I used to think I needed friends to prove I was still worth something. Now I realize I'm finally at peace when I'm alone. I don't have to explain myself to anyone, I just get to be." And I thought, yes, that's the shift we're talking about. You see, when we're younger, we often surround ourselves with people out of habit, obligation, or the fear of being alone. We go to gatherings we don't enjoy. We entertain conversations that drain us. But after 70, you start to realize you don't owe anyone your energy. You don't have to keep showing up just to make others comfortable. You've earned the right to be selective. And that leads us to another powerful truth. Solitude gives you space to heal and reflect. Life is full of noise. People's opinions, their drama, their expectations, it can all pile up and cloud your sense of self. But when the noise fades and you're left with silence, that's when the real magic happens. In that silence, you start to hear your own thoughts clearly again. You remember the hobbies you used to love, the books you meant to read, the walks you never took because you were always taking care of someone else. Now those moments are yours, all yours, no one to interrupt, no one to judge. Just you finally giving yourself the attention and love you so freely gave to others. A gentleman I met at a senior wellness retreat once told me, "After my wife passed, I didn't know who I was without her. I spent a year alone, really alone, and in that time I discovered something amazing. I liked myself. I found new parts of me that had been buried under years of taking care of others. I realized solitude isn't emptiness, it's space to grow." That hit me hard, because how many of us have spent decades being something for someone else? The caretaker, the parent, the dependable one. But after 70, we finally get the chance to be something for ourselves. And when you embrace solitude, you get to rebuild that relationship with the one person who's been with you through it all. You. Now let's talk about something else people don't always admit. Friendship can be stressful. Yes, even the good ones. There's emotional labor involved. The effort to stay in touch, to make plans, to keep up with someone else's life. And if that friendship isn't bringing you joy, that effort starts to feel like a burden. Have you ever hung up the phone and felt more tired than before the call? Or agreed to a lunch you didn't want to attend just to avoid disappointing someone? That's emotional fatigue, and it adds up. When you start choosing peace over obligation, something wonderful happens. You stop feeling guilty for resting. You stop apologizing for choosing quiet. And you begin to realize that solitude isn't lonely, it's liberating. Here's another surprising thing. When you stop chasing relationships that no longer fit, you open yourself up to deeper connections when they do come along. But those connections might not look the way they used to. They may not be lifelong friendships. They might be brief but meaningful encounters, a kind neighbor, a fellow gardening enthusiast, someone you chat with on your daily walk. And that's the beauty of this stage of life. You no longer need a big social circle to feel fulfilled. You just need authenticity, real moments that feel good to your soul. And sometimes those moments come when you're alone. Watching the birds in the morning, listening to music from your youth, writing in a journal, saying a quiet prayer. These are just pastimes, they are sacred acts of self-love. And when you let go of the pressure to maintain social obligations, you also let go of comparison. You stop measuring your life by what others are doing. You stop wondering why someone else's kids visit more often or why your old friends are still gathering without you. Because suddenly their path isn't your concern anymore. Yours is, and that's where your focus belongs. Now that we've touched on how solitude can bring peace, healing, and clarity, let's talk about something that surprises a lot of people. How being alone can actually make you stronger, because here's something we often forget. Being alone doesn't mean being weak. In fact, solitude can be one of the most empowering experiences of your life. Think about it for a second. When you're alone, every decision you make is your own. You don't have to check in with anyone, you don't have to accommodate anyone else's schedule, and you're not bending yourself to fit someone else's needs. You get to ask yourself, what do I want today? What makes me feel good? What does my body, my mind, and my spirit need? That kind of autonomy is incredibly freeing. And after decades of being everything to everyone, whether you were raising a family, working hard, or just trying to keep life afloat, you finally have space to be the captain of your own ship. There's a quiet power in waking up each morning and realizing, I choose how my day unfolds. Now let's be clear, embracing solitude doesn't mean shutting everyone out. It simply means that you're no longer depending on others for your happiness. You're no longer waiting for someone to call or invite you over or make plans for your weekend. You're building a life that's complete all on its own. And if someone chooses to walk into that life and share it with you, wonderful. But if not, you're still whole. There's a quote I heard once that I've never forgotten. The most profound relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. And that's especially true after 70. You've lived through so much. You've learned hard lessons, you've seen people come and go. And now the relationship you build with yourself, how you talk to yourself, how you treat yourself, that becomes the foundation for everything else. Let me tell you about George. He's 79, lives in a small town in Arizona, and after his wife passed, he found himself completely alone. No kids nearby, friends had drifted away. At first, he told me, it felt like the silence was going to swallow him whole. But slowly, something changed. He started walking every morning at sunrise, then he started journaling. Then he began painting, a hobby he hadn't touched in over 50 years. Today, he says he's the happiest he's ever been. Not because he's surrounded by people, but because he finally feels like he knows himself. That's what solitude gives us. Not loneliness, but the gift of rediscovery. The chance to remember the parts of ourselves that were buried under years of responsibilities. And when you realize that your company is enough, a weight lifts off your shoulders. You stop seeking approval, you stop chasing validation, and you start walking in your own light. Now you might be thinking, this all sounds nice, but what about those moments when the silence feels too loud? When it creeps in during holidays or quiet evenings, or when you see other people gathering and laughing. That feeling is real, and it's okay to miss connection. We're human, we were built to love. But what's important to remember is this: longing for connection doesn't mean you need to fill your life with people who don't see you, appreciate you, or bring you peace. In fact, forcing yourself into relationships that don't serve you can be far lonelier than being alone. Have you ever sat at a dinner table surrounded by people and still felt invisible? Have you ever smiled through a conversation that left you feeling drained and unseen? That's not connection, that's performance. And after 70, you've earned the right to stop performing. Instead, seek out moments of authentic connection, even if they're few and far between. Maybe it's a deep conversation with a grandchild, a genuine compliment to a stranger at the grocery store, a moment of shared laughter with someone at your book club or community center. These brief, honest interactions often mean more than years of surface-level friendships. Another thing that happens when you stop needing constant companionship is that you become more attuned to your environment. You notice the small things, the birds outside your window, the way sunlight hits your kitchen floor in the morning, the rhythm of your breath when everything else is still. These aren't trivial details, they are life. And when you're not rushing to meet someone else's expectations, you finally have the chance to fully live in your own moments. I remember talking to a woman named Evelyn. She was 83, lived alone in a modest apartment. And when I asked her if she ever felt lonely, she smiled and said, "No, because I finally have time to enjoy the company of life itself." As she had made peace with her solitude, and in that peace she found beauty. That doesn't mean you stop growing either. In fact, one of the greatest gifts of solitude is that it gives you the freedom to evolve. You can start learning again, picking up new hobbies, watching documentaries, writing down your memories, even learning how to use technology to explore the world. Your age doesn't define your curiosity. Your solitude gives it space to breathe. And if, at any point, you find yourself yearning for more connection, that's okay too. Embracing solitude doesn't mean rejecting community. It means building one that fits who you are now, not who you used to be. That could mean joining a local gardening group, volunteering, or simply showing up at your local library's events. But you're doing it from a place of peace, not desperation. The power lies in the choice. You no longer need company, you choose it when it feels right. And that choice, my friend, is where true independence begins. Now that we've explored how solitude brings you strength, peace, and rediscovery, let's take it one step further. How letting go of certain friendships can also make room for unexpected joy. Because sometimes the hardest friendships to let go of are the ones that no longer serve who we've become. It's not always easy to admit that some relationships have run their course, that a friend you've known for 30 or 40 years just doesn't fit in your life the way they used to. Maybe conversations feel forced. Maybe the connection feels one-sided. Maybe you feel more drained than joyful when you're together. And that's not your fault or theirs. People change, needs change, energy shifts. The truth is, holding on to people out of habit or guilt can weigh you down more than you realize. And after 70, your time is too precious to spend it feeling misunderstood, undervalued, or out of place. Letting go isn't about bitterness, it's about freedom. It's about honoring who you are now, not who you were decades ago. Imagine what it would feel like to release the pressure of maintaining connections that no longer nourish you. That mental and emotional space you gain, you can pour it back into yourself. Into the quiet mornings where you journal with a cup of coffee. Into long walks where you don't have to explain your silence. Into afternoons where you paint, read, bake, pray without interruption. You begin to build a life where you are the center, and that right there is not selfish, it's sacred. You start to notice that your solitude isn't empty, it's spacious. Spacious enough to breathe, to create, to reflect. Spacious enough to forgive yourself for things you used to carry. Spacious enough to dream again, even if your dreams are quiet and simple. Things like traveling alone to a place you've always wanted to visit, or learning how to cook that one dish you never quite mastered, or finally writing that memoir, even if only for your grandchildren. These things matter, you matter. I spoke once with a woman named Shirley. She was 76 at the time. She told me she stopped chasing old friendships the day she realized she was only reaching out because she was afraid of being forgotten. Not because she felt loved, not because she felt seen, just afraid, and fear isn't a good foundation for any relationship. Once she let go of that fear, something incredible happened. She felt lighter, more herself. She started walking to the park every evening with her little dog. She'd sit and watch the ducks and sometimes strike up a chat with someone new. And she told me, for the first time in years, I feel free. Now here's something to remember. Just because you're spending more time alone doesn't mean you're alone in spirit. You carry with you every person you've ever loved, every lesson you've ever learned, every moment that made you stronger. Solitude doesn't erase your past. It allows you to sit with it, appreciate it, and then gently place it where it belongs. Behind you, not weighing on your shoulders. And if you're still feeling a tug in your heart, wishing someone would just call or stop by, it's okay. That's not weakness, that's your humanity. But here's what I'd encourage you to ask. Would their visit bring peace or simply fill a temporary silence? Would their presence enrich your day or leave you feeling like you had to perform, explain, or shrink yourself to be accepted? At this stage in life, your peace is worth more than politeness. Your comfort is worth more than tradition. And your joy is worth protecting fiercely, so protect it. Build your days around what makes your heart feel full. That could be music, movement, learning, serving others, gardening, spiritual reflection, whatever speaks to your soul. And here's the beautiful irony in all of this. Once you stop looking for people to complete your life, you often attract the right people naturally. People who appreciate your calm presence. People who respect your boundaries. People who aren't threatened by your independence. You become a magnet not because you're searching, but because you've become so rooted in yourself that your energy draws in only what aligns. So maybe instead of asking, why don't I have more friends? The better question becomes, what do I really want from the people in my life? Is it loyalty, kindness, light conversation, deep connection? Once you know what you need, you'll stop settling for anything less. And you'll also realize that you can give many of those things to yourself. There's such strength in a person who can sit alone and feel at peace. Not scrolling, not distracting, not numbing, but simply being. That's the kind of strength that comes with age, with wisdom, with living through storms and still choosing to greet each morning with grace. And yes, there will be days when you long for the sound of laughter in your kitchen or the feeling of an old friend's hand in yours. Let those memories visit like old photographs, cherished but not defining. You are still writing your story. And solitude doesn't mean the story ends. It just means you've taken the pen back into your own hand. So today, let's not mourn what's missing. Let's celebrate what's present. Let's honor the silence that gives birth to clarity. Let's make room in our lives, not for noise, but for meaning. Let's remember that being alone is not the same as being unloved. If this message has spoken to your heart, I want you to take a deep breath right now and say to yourself, I am enough, my presence is enough. My life exactly as it is today is worthy. And if you feel moved, I'd love to hear your story. How have you embraced solitude? What unexpected joys have you discovered in your quiet moments? Share it in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you found comfort, insight, or inspiration in this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. It helps more people, especially those over 60, find the content they need to live fuller, freer lives. Don't forget to subscribe too. We're building a community of people who believe aging is not about slowing down, it's about waking up to what really matters. Thank you for spending this time with me. Whether you're watching this in a cozy chair with your morning coffee or late at night when the world is still, know this, you are never truly alone. You are seen, you are valued, and you are deeply, deeply appreciated. Here's to living your best, most peaceful, most powerful life at any age.